South Park is a show that can only appeal to a certain audience due to its unique art style and adult humor. But that doesn't stop its creators from making sure they've covered every single topic in existence since its original release in 1997. Sometimes it's just a random joke thrown in the middle of an episode, and at other times it can be an entire episode controversially dedicated to the topic. Normally, the episodes very aggressively mock the topic that they pick, to the point that it deeply offends the targeted demographic. But the approach taken for the Make Love Not Warcraft episode was a bit different, as it both feels like a tribute to the video game that it parodies, and a mockery of its player base at the same time. While it's considered one of the best South Park episodes ever made, there's undeniably a lot wrong with it. After all, it was almost taken off air and deleted forever before it was finally on TV, so it's certainly far from perfect. So, let's take a look at everything wrong with South Park's Make Love Not Warcraft episode. Let's start with the elephant in the room. South Park's co-creator hated this episode so much after its creation, he wanted to stop it from airing. He begged and begged, saying this episode will ruin the legacy of our show, and thought people would hate it since it makes fun of a huge community. Since it was too late to pull out now, the episode went on air anyway. This greatly depressed Trey Parker, and he didn't even sleep the night when it was aired. Shockingly for him, he learned the next day that people actually really liked this episode, and no one is going to show up outside his house with pitchforks. Over time, he has come to appreciate the work he did on the episode, and acknowledged he was just going through a rough time that made him insecure about it back in the day. Why are most clips of World of Warcraft in this episode so low resolution? If this was a PS2 game, I'd understand the native resolution of the console just is low. But World of Warcraft looked pretty decent on computers when this episode came out. 3D rendering on PCs works differently to consoles, so it makes no sense why the game has such shaky resolution on every computer in South Park, even when we see rigs of other people besides the kids. One thing that you'll notice continuously throughout this episode is the avatars act unnaturally in the World of Warcraft scene. They fully move their lips alongside the player speaking. They stop and react to things happening in real life. At one point, a character's mage animation even gets interrupted with a unique animation because the player in real life experiences carpal tunnel in their hand. It's a needless step to make the avatars feel more relatable, and takes away from the campiness the actual game has. Kenny and Randy are both human hunters in this episode, but that was completely impossible when this episode came out. To add more diversity within the different races, the developers did not let humans become hunters, and this was limited to other races instead. It wasn't until many updates later that humans could finally pick this class too. And at the time of this episode's release, the expansion that added this option, Cataclysm, wasn't announced in any form either. When Butters joins World of Warcraft, his appearance is used as a joke as he looks exactly like Carbon's dwarf character. But this would have been impossible because of the fact that Carbon's a player that's been in the game for a while. Butters joins it right at that moment. So the fact that he had the same armor and appearance doesn't make any sense. Ike's armor in the episode also seems to have unbelievably high level gear that a new character wouldn't be able to obtain. When planning out his attack, Cartman tells the team they will meet on the plains of Elwyn Forest near Westfall. But when we see them in the game, they are roughly 4 regions away from the actual forest that's mentioned in the episode. At one point in the episode, we see a montage where the team goes through the first week of September, treading in-game and turning into basement dwellers in real life. However, in Kyle's room, the calendar hanging on his door already has much of October crossed off, which makes no sense as that month comes after. Has Kyle not changed his calendar since October last year? The episode solely focuses on the Alliance side of the game's characters, as it is written to be an internal problem for the Alliance community. This also means the episode only focuses on the 4 races the Alliance side can pick. The game, however, has a second faction called the Horde, which has the evil-looking races, and comes with its own set of characters to choose from. But the episode completely ignores them, possibly to not complicate the script, as South Park episodes are only 22 minutes long. World of Warcraft has restrictions that stop high-level players from farming experience by killing low-level mobs. This makes the low-level mobs gray for the player, and they can no longer solo level by just repeatedly killing them. It's worth noting that killing boars can still get you more experience even in higher levels, but not in the same area or by killing those of the same low level. This is to encourage the players to take on challenges that suit their levels. So the leveling up montage from the episode couldn't have been possible in real life. Ask any World of Warcraft fan if Blizzard cares about the game this passionately, and their answer will immediately explain why the way the team was represented in the episode was unrealistic. It takes months to years to get them to listen to their fans, and even then, what ends up coming up, especially in recent years, just disappoints people. You can't randomly join TeamSpeak servers unless someone from that server invites you. Yet, throughout the episode, Randy casually jumps into voice chat with the kids without being invited at all, completely surprising them with his in-game character. I know this episode takes place decades in the past, but Blizzard still did not transfer in-game items for an online MMO on a USB drive. It makes absolutely no sense for an online game to magically get an item written into its code, and then be added to a global server if one person places the file into their computer using a USB. Additionally, they had computers in the headquarters as well, and could have added the item into the game, but for some reason, they decided to risk it all by going to Randy's house and hoping they would reach it in time. At the start of the episode, we see that Stan's in-game username is Stan is cool, but later on it's claimed to be loves to spooge. The antagonist in this episode has the ability to summon scorpions, which we see later on in the episode. However, they are mentioned earlier too, once with Cartman saying everyone target the scorpion, but we can see footage of the game in the background and no scorpions are in sight. The players are just fighting Jenkins. Furthermore, it's worth mentioning that you couldn't actually randomly summon scorpions in the game either, no matter what level you were. At numerous points in the episode, dying in the game is exaggerated to be a massive issue that leads people to quit the game. And when the Blizzard team reaches Randy's house, they tell him too that
unless they have this sword, your son's character is going to die.
But in reality, dying in World of Warcraft is not nearly this dramatic. First of all, if you manage to take your ghost from the graveyard and find your body, you can respawn with almost no penalty. And even if you respawn in a different method, your inventory takes a small hit, but it's nothing you can't manage or get over. The biggest battle that takes place in the episode is in a place called the Arathi Highlands, where we see many level 1 characters with low level gear are going about their business, fighting monsters in this location. However, this location in-game is in fact a mid-level zone, so this would be completely impossible to do, as those characters would be killed instantly if they roamed this area because they would be underleveled for the mobs found here. In the start of the episode, a location called Stonehaven is mentioned, which allegedly has a quest in it, but no such place in the game existed, so this is just completely made up. At one point in the episode, Cartman asks Kyle to give a cloak to Kenny that has a 15+ agility enchantment on it. However, cloaks in the game are soul-bound and thus cannot be given to another character. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about how good or bad this episode of South Park was for you. It's truly fascinating how something that handled a topic this well can still get so much wrong, and I'm sure even I must have missed a detail or two. And there were so many inconsistencies to be found between the real WoW and what this episode portrayed. If you'd like to see similar videos from me, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit the bell icon for instant notifications.